welcome everyone to the Infrastructure and Transport Committee meeting 13th of May 2025. Welcome committee members and welcome Mangai Hill, who is graciously going to open our hui this morning with a karakia.
Rā tātou morena e karema. I tēnei wā me te tuku karakia, nāna nei ngā mea katoa, no reira mei no tātou. E pā tēnei mātou te tukuna te whakamoe meti te whakawhaitāti ki a koe. Mauria mai manakitanga hei arataki hei tia ki tō tātene whiri korero. I tēnei wā, ko i karati hoki tō mātou kaiwhaka ora. Āmene. Me mihi i tēnei wā e te pau o tēnei komiti ki ngā mate ko wheturangi tia. No reira, ki te whānau pane e noho pauri ana i tēnei wā. O tira ki te whānau o Emma. Me mihi ka tika ki te pau o te iwi o Waikato ko Shane Solomon Meki, a tō tātane pāpā ki Ngāti Koriki Kākura ko Fred. O reira, rātau kia rātau, tātau kia tātau. Tēnā rā tātou katoa. Just want to acknowledge our bereaved families at this point in time for those that have passed through the veil of life, and acknowledge Emma and her family, the passing of her nan. Acknowledging Shane Solomon, a great leader of Waikato Tāne, who's driven partnership for many kaupapa within Waikato Tāne, and a leader in Ngāti Koriki Kākura, Fred Carr, who has led a number of design, creative aspects within Kirikirido also. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Norm. Thank you. And just, if I may briefly, understanding orders, we reflect, the chair is allowed to have a moment of reflection. We often do that. Thank you, Mangai Hill. And we do it with civic occasions as well. Also to acknowledge things that are important to the community. And just before we begin today's meeting, I just want to take a moment in a public forum to acknowledge the deeply upsetting crash that occurred in our central city last week. And I know that all elected members of Mangai shared in how deeply upset we were that a 17-year-old cyclist has suffered life-altering injuries by being struck by a car. This was particularly poignant as she starts her life. She was on her way to her second day of work and now faces an unimaginable difficult recovery. So I know that the committee joins me in sending our thoughts to her whānau and her wider community. I just want to acknowledge as well that tragedy that happened on that day happened on the same day that Jessica Mossa, who lost her life on our roads some years ago, her case was returned to court on the very same day that this young cyclist was injured. So I just wanted to acknowledge that on behalf of our council and Mangai, that we acknowledge that. And I also acknowledge the work that is underway that the city is doing.
Guild on Norton Road.
Yes, well, yes, absolutely.
Yet another tragedy.
I think my message is about how these roads are under our purview, they are our responsibility, and we will always look to do our best to make sure that every road user is safe. So thank you for allowing that reflection. Right, let's continue with the meeting. Apologies from Mayor Southgate for full absence and Councillor Tawariki, who is at a tangi for family. We send our warm aroha to him. Any other apologies? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I've got a long-standing appointment at 2:15, which I need to leave for, unfortunately.
Well, we're done by then.
I hope so.
Thank you. Any further? There are none. Okay, and also our welcome to our elected members online, Councillor Anna Casey-Cox and Councillor Emma Pike. Welcome. All right, with that, I'll move the apologies be received, seconded by Councillor Van Osten. All those in favour say aye. There are none opposed. That's carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. You have your run sheets in front of you. Just noting that we will, myself and Councillor Wilson and Councillor McIndoe and Councillor Huata will be receiving a delegation from Korea. We'll pop out from 11:15 and hopefully we should be back just before 12. So extended morning tea break for you all, and I believe the chair of this committee has made Fiji or crumble slice. And I'll leave it up to Councillor Van Osten to cut it and distribute it. And I can see, look, Councillor Wilson's already going. Please save me a seat. A slice, not a seat. So with that, I will confirm that the agenda is accurate, and I'll move that. Councillor Hutt seconded. All those in favour? There are none opposed. That's carried. Thank you. And a call now for declarations of interest. Thank you, Mangai Hill. And that's to item 8. So Mangai Hill will step away for that item. Right, we have no one in the public forum today, so let's move to item 5, confirmation of the minutes of the 11th of March 2024, 2025. I'll move those are accurate records, seconded by the Deputy Chair, Councillor McIndoe. All those in favour? There are none opposed. That's carried. Terrific. Item 6, PT Services. And we have Martin Parks and we have Regional Council, Waikato Regional Council, Nigel King as well. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you very much.
And I will hand over to you. And we page 23 members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't do too much of an introduction because we're going to go through a short presentation on the screen there that outlines basically what's in the report. There's a bit more detail in the report, but what I'm going to do is hand over to Nigel to take us through the presentation, then we can have some questions afterwards, if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
Chair.
Presentation slides are 105. Thanks, Nigel.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. Good morning, committee members. Pleasure to be here with you this morning. The presentation that you have up on screen is a repeat of one that was presented to the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee workshop on the 5th of May, Monday last week. So I'm standing in for Dr. Bridget Doran, who's been leading this piece of work for us. So what we are working through here is just what is future networks that support Hamilton bus contract review. James, if we could go to the next slide, please. So I just want to acknowledge first up the support of Hamilton City Council staff, Martin and others who have been helping us develop these options that are before you. Much of the content that you'll see in this presentation is referenced in the council report. Where possible, I'll try to identify those linkages between it. And again, just reiterating that we can't do this individually, and it's been a very useful collaborative effort as we've worked through it. I'll try not to read the slides out loud, but please do stop me if you need to. I'll work through it fairly quickly. Next slide, please, James. So, there are 2 bus network options currently proposed for Hamilton City Council. And work that has informed these options actually began last year in 2024. I should also just say, sorry, I seem to be losing my voice today. Please ask me to speak up if you can't hear me. So this work began in 2024 and continues to build on some important reports that have been prepared. So noted up there are the Public Transport Pathways report. This is technical work to support the future-proof vision. And includes those bus network options through as far as the 2050s. This work involved a series of workshops with Future Proof Transport Working Group members through 2024. Also on that was the Hamilton Network Review, which was technical work to assess the options for improvements to the Hamilton's current bus network, specifically with a view to identify what was possible within current operating budgets, noting a financially constrained operating environment. This work was completed in 2024. Earlier this year, there's been a series of bus network workshops, which were in-person workshops involving Hamilton City Council staff and Waikato Regional Council staff. to develop the contract options for review, and that's what the output is within these next few slides. This has been aspirational for a reason. We are expecting growth in Hamilton, and what we want to do is cater for this growth and give people options. We want to be able to absorb growth in efficient ways and make sure that people can still get where they want to, by which mode they choose. Next slide, please, James. Oh, sorry, if we just advance to the next slide, please, James. Thank you. This figure is one that you have in the paper. It's figure 1, just under section 24. So these options here just have been developed in parallel with both metro services within the Hamilton urban area and regional services that come into Hamilton. Again, the report discusses this quite well. The frequency and hours of operation do come straight out of the Regional Public Transport Plan, which has been through public engagement and approved by the Regional Transport Committee. So all of what you see here relates to Hamilton services. And again, what we've seen, well, it's probably worth noting that the success that we've seen in services and uptake and patronage recently has been related to frequency, and we've seen that with the Meteor and the Comet. And when we make it frequent, we do attract good patronage as a result. Next slide, please, James. Sorry, there might be one just after that diagram that looks like there we go, network options. Thank you. So again, this is identified in section 31 in the report with some additional detail there. And what has been noted is these are the options that are given. So often it's a base option with an add-on. Again, going back to the previous discussion, what is possible within side of current operating budgets. In terms of what's been put forward in front of you, the timing for those contract years as they move forward has been designed to align with National Land Transport Program investment periods. Again, I'm conscious there's probably a range of knowledge around the room about how that operates. It's a 3-year cycle, and we work with NZTA in that process. But what we want to be able to do is respond to government direction and work towards changes as budgets allow. And so that's also linked to the government policy statement on land transport as it comes out. The flex options are provided if we want to fill in more corner-to-corner coverage as we focus through this process on more direct, higher frequency scheduled services. So what's proposed for going out to contract is the base option, which you see there is 2028A base, which is a more efficient version of what we have now, and it's basically within 10% of peak vehicle requirements and passage kilometres of the current offering. It's not a radical change. The network review included what we could do within the operational budget, and as mentioned, those contract years align with what we can do with National Land Transport Program cycles. Next slide, please, James. Thank you. This figure that you've got in front of you is figure 3 in the report and relates to some of the commentary from paragraph 33 onwards. So these maps have been through several iterations from their starting point. It's what we're calling the base network and was adapted from the current 2025 Hamilton bus services and optimised for patronage through that network review project that was undertaken in 2024. So both Hamilton City Council staff and Waikato Regional Council staff have workshopped these services nearly on a road-by-road basis to have a look at them with current and potential future infrastructure investment in mind, and I'm conscious that that's the concern of this committee too. We've also taken into account practical implications of changes and used that collective knowledge across both of our organisations to show what achievable routes may be and places for both bus terminuses, termini, and layovers. The main change from the current 2025 network to the base model is a new Rototuna frequent service. And again, we'll continue to work with Hamilton City Council to bring the service in during the current NLTP period. Other services on the map are essentially tweaks to existing services to provide more attractive services to more people. In order to make changes, we do need to review other services to remain cost neutral, and this can take a range of options in terms of how we pay for this, but we will work through this as staff with both ourselves and Hamilton City Council. We try to make sure that we consider the public need, and we note that obviously any changes do rest with elected members, and we'll take guidance on this. Next slide, please, James. The figure that you have in front of you is figure 4 in the report. Again, relates to paragraph 37 onwards. This is also includes the work from the PT Pathways review, and what you see in this one is that the orbiter in this option is replaced with 2 different routes, the Northern Link and the Southern Link. As much as possible, we've tried to keep route details consistent between the base and the PT Pathways options to minimise infrastructure changes such as bus stops. And again, the report that Council have, or this committee has, identified some of these linkages. Again, per the previous advice, we've almost tried to run on a line-by-line basis on how that might be developed to make it as practical as possible while maintaining a view on our aspirations. Next slide, please, James, and this should be the final slide. Oh, Flex. I don't have this one in my one, but again, having a look at what we've got here with Flex, these are the options that could be added to either network, and as the report outlines, and as we have here, the Flex is designed to, as we move towards frequent services, more direct, Flex provides that corner-to-corner coverage, as noted earlier, as an option to add to either of the networks. Next slide, please, James. Next steps. So this morning, very happy to receive feedback by yourself, Chair, and this committee, and we've taken feedback from the Future Proof PT subcommittee at the workshop last week. It will be very useful to add and augment that with this committee's feedback. What we'll be looking at then doing is refining service proposals prior to public consultation, and we are looking to go out and discuss this. We'll get that feedback from our public and communities. So we'll work with both Hamilton City Council and with our district partners for the services that feed into Hamilton in terms of the final service specifications to feed into those contracts. And then what we are ultimately looking for is to use that to inform tenders that will then go out and produce that request for tender and other contracts as we go out to look to implement Hamilton networks in 2028. Thank you, Chair. That's the end of my parts of this presentation, but happy to take questions through yourself and supported by Martin.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you for a clear presentation. Just reminding our members that the recommendation in front of us is a support in principle, although we do have a motion from Councillor Thompson, and actually all of this is for future 2027 LTP. So just so there's a little bit of context around that. First question, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, thank you for that. Can I just clarify what extent of public consultation has been involved in the plan so far?
Sorry, Councillor Taylor, could you specify for this piece of work undertaken now, or the work referenced in the Regional Public Transport Plan?
For what we're being asked to approve in principle today, what consultation has taken place with the public?
So we haven't been out to the public for this work yet. This is based on technical reports that have been developed and worked through with Hamilton City Council staff and Waikato Regional Council staff. And one of the next steps that we'd like to do is take this out to the public to test those options with them.
But you're asking us to approve it in principle first?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I guess the reason I'm asking is because there's lots of good stuff here, and there's lots of, changes to the network and extensions which are good, but there's also some quite substantial issues in here as well. And so I guess I'm asking, for example, where we talk about, there's a line here, in the short-term proposals might involve road space reallocation and the introduction of managed or shared lanes. And of course, there's the high-frequency bus route proposed along Anglesey and Ulster Street, which could mean a bus lane. So I guess I'm asking, they're fairly meaty issues. Would it not be a fair suggestion that it would be nice to get the public input on that first before we adopt something in principle?
I think this is a bigger future thinking piece that allows the regional council to go out to tender their services, which they have to do, that avoids numerous variations in the future through these contracts, which are very expensive when you chop and change services in the future. So it's putting these options into a contract document that bus tenderers can price. Once we get into some of the details around potential bus rapid transport, that's quite a few years in the future. Those corridors you mentioned are already being highly used by public transport anyway. It's unlikely that we'll be going to bus rapid transport in the life of this contract for bus services. That will come later. There'll be a huge amount of public engagement. There'll be a huge amount of engagement and decision making required by both councils on that front before we even think about putting a spade in the ground and developing those projects. So that's a sort of separate piece of work. This is all about getting contracts out to the market so they can be priced properly without too many variations.
Yeah. Although you are asking us to support this in principle.
In principle, yes.
So can you understand why I'm uneasy about supporting something in principle when it might go out to the public who will absolutely hate it or whatever?
They might do, you're right.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned some of this is long term, but it says here in the short term proposals that will involve road space reallocation and the introduction of shared lanes. So
sorry to interrupt, but that's basically the decision around allocation and shared lanes and bus lanes would have to come through the correct committees for a decision to be made anyway. They can only be made as a result of the decision making within this room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Is there a way where we could actually, before we support something in principle, would you have any objection to us consulting with our public first before we support this whole thing in principle?
I think that's what Nigel was sort of referring to. They need to go out and consult with the public on the future thinking of these routes. So what we're seeing today in this paper and in the presentation is the Regional Council need to go and consult on that and get the feedback, which will then come back to the politicians to make a decision on whether that's included in those contracts.
So we could put this off until that's been done, I guess.
I think that's a problem of delaying the actual process of getting these new contracts out to tender. It's the lead time required is quite significant. So timeframes are a little short, particularly when we've got an election coming up as well. So we need to be careful not to delay it for too long if it gets delayed.
Sure, but is it possible, Martin, that a number of these contracts could be done separately without us having to adopt in principle this whole plan?
Oh, that would be a question for the Regional Council. I don't know. It's their contract process.
I'd suggest that would be a good way forward, I would have thought. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for the presentation. I guess, can I start with just a confirmation? The new contract for the buses would be from the 1st of July 2028?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And so is it your understanding we're starting this process 3 years early? Can you just walk me through why you're starting that so early?
Yes. Excuse me. Thank you for your question. There is a long lead time So this process here is to identify the networks that those contracts could operate on. As Martin mentioned, it's good to try and get those as close to the final product as possible, so we're not subject to variation changes throughout the life of that contract. So this process here has been designed to identify those network options, get that public feedback, utilise that to go out into the tender documentation. There is now a new requirement for buses that are used for public transport in New Zealand to be zero emission, and that came into effect from this year. There is quite a significant lead time in terms of I guess, for operators to tool up and make sure that they've got the right resources in place. What advice that we have received to date is that is taking 18 to 24 months in order to be able to make sure that they're in that position. The global supply chain is dictating that. We're a small market and have to sort of accept some of those changes. As Martin mentioned before too, depending on what is required, if we need to again make changes to support those services with infrastructure, there's a bit of a lead time on that too. We just want to make sure that we're completely aligned and in the best possible position to provide a service that our public wants at that time.
Thank you. There is no doubt that the current operators will all need to go to zero emission vehicles, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's whether the current network stays exactly the same or expands?
Yes.
Right. So help me understand why the finer tuning of the broader network implications have to be finalised this far out. You've explained, part of your explanation is this assertion of the lead time for zero emission vehicles. But isn't that already known? Isn't the fact that your contractors will need to go to a zero emission vehicle already known?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So on reflection, is there any urgency?
In order to
for the delivery of
the contracts.
You said that one of the reasons you wanted to determine the current route or the preferred route network was because there's an 18 to 24 month period required for the purchasing of these new zero emission vehicles. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
And what you've now also confirmed is that in fact there's no correlation between that and the route network because they know they have to get the new vehicles. So I'm just asking why you're saying that it's so important to finalise the new route network 3 years in advance.
Can I just interject there? I think we've got a current, obviously, service provider. There's no guarantee that they're going to end up getting the new contract. There's obviously competition in the market, hence why we go to tender. So if the current provider starts investing in zero emissions buses and he loses a number of contracts, or they lose a number of contracts throughout the country, they would have invested too much ahead of time. So they've got to have some assurance that how many contracts they've got so they can invest at the right time in the number of buses they're going to need to run their contracts. So going out early is quite important for the market to understand how many new vehicles they're going to need to invest in. Right. As Nigel says, we're generally at the back of the queue because we're a small market.
Okay, thank you. Martin, just explain to me, how are these contractors, how is the scale of the utilisation determined? Because are you saying that in fact you go out with a tender document saying this is exactly the route network and the exact frequency, and that drives the purchase decision of the vehicle?
It's what we're going to the market on is our best endeavours on a future network, based on all the technical work that's been done in the background and collaboration between WRC and HCC staff. So it's our best guess at this moment in time of what we would like the network to look like in the future, and based on the RPTP as well. So I'm not saying it's set in stone, but what it does is we're saying to the market, here's our best guess. What we don't want is 5 years down the track, once somebody signed up, we suddenly change the routes dramatically, and then we've got these very expensive variations coming in that costs the community a lot of money. We're trying to avoid that. So we can tweak bits of the network in the future and then we can avoid variations. But if we change it significantly, then that costs a lot of money.
But there's no suggestion in any of these scenarios that the scale of the change is overly significant.
I think once you look at what the current network looks like now and you compare it to where we want to be in the future, there is quite a difference. We're going less coverage, we're going more ridership, more direct, because we know how successful those services have already been in Hamilton. And the community are saying, can we have more of that, please?
More frequency.
More frequency, more direct. That seems to be what our community are feeding back to us. We can do the coverage stuff with the flex service. So we're building some flexibility into the new contracts as well, with the flex being there.
Okay. So my last series of questions is on page 25 and paragraph 23. Can you give me some meaningful examples of what roads, because you're asking me to approve this in principle, right?
Yes.
What roads exactly are you suggesting we're going to reallocate space and introduce managed lanes?
I couldn't give you a long list at this stage, but we have talked about with people in this room in the past about the bus rapid transit network, and we've talked openly about Anglesey Street as being a road that's going to have a very high number of PT services running along it. So a lot of attention will be required to ensure that we've got the right capacity for the number of services that we're running along an Anglesey Street corridor, which may require the removal of some car parking spaces. I'm just saying may at this stage because there's a long way to go before we make those decisions. So that's an example I can give you.
Okay, so any others?
Well, I mean, the BRT routes are well known as being that north-south corridor, Anglesey Street, Ulster, Te Rapa, and east-west along Clyde Street and then into town through that way. So those are the ones that will be the focus.
Okay. Madam Chair, please forgive me because this is very important because you are asking us to provide an in-principle decision today. Can you help me understand the costs that would be associated with any of the road changes? For example, just use Anglesey as an example and try to paint a picture of what changes would occur and what engineering things would occur and what the associated costs are. Because you're asking us to commit in principle to this. So we must have turned our mind to those questions. So could you just give me an example of Anglesey?
I can't give you costs on that. Without doing a detailed study on and design, I can't give you a cost on that.
Madam Chair, can I ask staff, would it be possible if we delayed this?
Yeah. Let's hear from Tanya on that.
And Tanya, I guess my question would be, if we were to delay this, staff were to work up a broader overview of the areas, potential costs, and so that we could give you constructive feedback about whether or not we want to in principle.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I think there's an opportunity for staff to provide members with that significant level of detail so that you have that comfort. And what I'm hearing is that some of these potential changes to our roading network need to align with consulting with our community and understanding the needs of the governance in place at the time as well as to look at the future of our network. Just noting that Waikato Regional Council also have a responsibility under the Local Government Act to look after the buses, and our role is to look after the infrastructure for that bus network, and we have to work closely and align with them.
So just from a practical sense, is that to sort of say that we put this item aside and we give staff, because there's no immediate urgency, to give them a chance to thrash that out? Because you're currently asking us to blindly commit to something that we really haven't.
So I'm going to speak as the chair here, because herein lies the problem with our governance structure, in that there are some, and Councillor Wilson, we may need a procedural motion just on this item, simply because there are elected members, some elected members that are all over this, and involved in WRC and PT, and there are some, and for legitimate reasons, this is why I'm saying this is our governance structure, that aren't, and this is a lot to ask of some members that aren't over the detail of this. So I'm aware that Councillor Thompson and Councillor Casey Cox do have a motion. This is why I think at this point in time, that we would have to actually just simply test through a procedural motion and have a vote. I might have my sense of that might be wrong, but it might not be. Those members might be happy to also just let this one lie on the table and go to a briefing.
If it helps, Madam Chair, I'll start working the procedural motion and we can continue.
Okay, let me just hear from Councillor Thompson.
I'm not opposed to letting things lie on the table to go to a briefing, but it would be great to still have the opportunity, instead of completely cutting off elected members' opportunity to ask questions now, for us to look at just a normal motion in that regard rather than a procedural one.
What's a normal motion,
Well,
Councillor
so
Thompson?
basically that
Just that we
receives the report and then notes there will be a further briefing and decision on this, advocates to the Regional Council in regard to the Urutuna rocket. So I still
Madam
would
Chair,
like...
I'll move that motion with Councillor Jeff, because I know you've already moved a motion, right?
Well, no,
I was just talking to the Chair about amending that current motion there. So with the support of Councillor Casey Cox.
So that's a significant change. We've accepted a motion.
That's okay, because I think Councillor Thompson's hearing the mood of the room, and she's willing to collaborate.
I'm hearing the need for another briefing on this, and I'm comfortable with that, and I'm sure that our chair can then work out timing around, how to deal with timing issues there. But I'm just keen to be able to ask a few more questions in this meeting, rather than stopping things right now with a formal procedural motion. And so I'm happy to take that on board for now. Yeah.
So we can do that. If a procedural motion comes up, I still need to accept that. But I think as chair, so we'll carry on with some questions while that motion is rewritten.
Yeah, so is there someone working on...
receives the report
I'm working on one now.
and notes that staff will undertake to take the issue to the next available briefing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm up to Councillor Hutt for questions.
Thank you. Good morning. I kind of want to go back a little bit and just make sure I have a really clear understanding of the way that the options would work. So option one is all of those routes would be aiming to be online by, was it 2028?
That's correct, yep.
And then for the option B, that whole suite we could move in if we felt like bringing them forward, or are they individual routes we could bring in? What's the kind of, what's the flexibility?
You can go slower or faster depending on, from the governance side, both sides, regional and city. You can go slower or faster, depending on your appetite for change.
And is that per route or the whole of option B as a suite?
I'm not sure, that's maybe one for Nigel.
Can I come back to you on that, please,
Sure.
Councillor Hart?
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course. The report acknowledges the 1.62 million that we've already contributed to the infrastructure. I know that that's in the immediate future. I was just wondering about some examples of what the specifics of that infrastructure we're going to get for that 1.6.
It would be nothing too transformational with regards to intersection upgrades. It's getting your basic stuff in, like your bus shelters, your bus stops, your hard stands, your accessible curbs.
Yep.
That's what you'd spend your money on.
Do you have a ballpark of how many beautiful curb cuts I could expect for 1.6?
I don't, I'm afraid.
Okay, that's all right. I'll live. I noted in option A that there's no bus that goes to the gardens by the look of it. Could I just confirm that is the intention?
I think that's where potentially the flex would come in and support.
Yeah. Cool. And then the Dinsdale Frankton Uni, which looked a lot like the Meteor but isn't the Meteor, looks like it goes to the zoo, but I just wanted clarity on whether that's a 15-minute service or a 30-minute service.
Sorry, which service were you talking about again? Sorry.
Dinsdale Frankton Uni, apologies, I don't have the number.
Oh, that wouldn't be I don't think that would be a high frequency service, no.
Okay.
The Comet, the Meteor, the Orbiter and the potential Rotatuna rocket would be the high frequency services. And when we talk about high frequency, we're saying every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're not rapid. Yeah.
So just wanted some clarity on
But I
that.
think that depends on how the consultation goes with the community as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's a feedback that, that's
Yeah.
required, then that's something that the regional council would consider.
I was also wondering if I could have advice from staff in terms of the interaction that we have with regional council. In Diligent, I'm sure that they exist. I would not say that I'm very confident at regularly finding them. Is there any way to change the type of reporting that we get back from those PT subcommittees that could be from a staff member taking high-level notes that go into an exec update or something that just makes it way more visible for us?
Yes, Councillor Hart, previously we've provided a lot more detail than what we normally have been doing recently. So generally in the General Manager's update, we've provided a link to the information. Previous to that, we've gone into a little bit more detail and provided the actions and the outcomes from those meetings as well. So we can take that as a staff action to
Awesome.
increase that reporting for you.
I would personally be so excited. But, those are currently all my questions.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Councillor McIndoe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, yeah, Councillor Thompson was on the list before me, but she was there before me. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Sorry, I thought I was there. Thank you, Councillor Tim. I have a few questions in terms of, so firstly, with the overall network that has been put in front of us for option B, does it, over the next 10 years, in order to have those frequent and direct services, does that have to actually, is that reliant on road space allocation, or can we still deliver all of those frequent routes at this stage without that?
Through the chair, the answer to that question is yes. You can have all of those routes without any road space allocation. I suppose what you do when you think about trying to make public transport more efficient and reliable is you want to actually ensure that there's not too many delays on the network.
So what I'm wanting to confirm though is, in terms of some concerns raised this morning, us actually approving this new network in principle doesn't actually mean we are in principle saying we will be supporting it with road space allocation. We would need to support it with some public transport infrastructure improvements,
Yes.
but it's not that it's absolutely reliant on that.
It's not reliant on it, no,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
at all.
Thank you.
And I think, sorry, can I just clarify
yeah.
that paragraph in there around the bus rapid transit was looking a lot further into the future. You know, we're a long way off from that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of the Rototuna frequent route, this is something that was discussed last term, has been discussed for years. How can we, and I see that there's 2 more PT subcommittee meetings for the rest of the year and it's not on the agenda for Friday. Can we get this on the agenda for Friday in order to expedite the decision-making process?
Something that Nigel would be prepared to take.
Yeah, I can follow up on the exact methodology of that for you and come back to you on that, Councillor Thompson. I'm not sure I can give a definitive answer right here. What I might propose is that I can work with members on that committee that represent Hamilton City Council and obviously yourself, and come back to you on that one.
Thank you, Nigel. And can you explain to me what the necessary steps are to get the frequent Rototuna service underway?
Yes, from a planner's perspective, yes. So having the route identified, having the frequency identified, being able to go to our contractor with that information. I think the report has delved into that, and it was in the presentation and some of the work prior. In order to introduce those within this term, it requires, I guess, reviewing services generally. We need to work within the operational budget that we've got at the moment. So that would mean looking at services generally and taking from some to give to others. So that's the planning that's required, and then working with the operator to be able to deliver to what might be required. Some of the feedback that we're seeking through this is an understanding of the routes that are proposed from the public, where they want to go, and using that to inform that planning space.
And then from our side, we'd need to, the regional council would go out and do a consultation process with directly affected communities of any change. So along the new Rototuna Rocket route, they would consult, and also consult with people who are having services removed from their areas as well to make work. So we'd wait for the outcome of that process, and then from a city council side, once we've got a defined route, we would go and do our assessment of infrastructure requirements and do our consultation process. But a lot of that would then need to be, if you're changing bus stops or putting bus stops in, they need to go through this committee and the traffic panel as well. So there's quite a bit of work to be done before buses suddenly appear and people are getting on and off. So yeah, it does take time.
Thank you. Is there, and given that it can be delivered within existing resources, what is the reason that the moves to make that improvement have been have taken so long?
Well, I probably am not equipped to make comment on that, sorry.
Okay. All right, thank you. And sorry, James, could you please still retain the part of the motion which advocates for the Rototuna frequent service to be implemented by June 2027, I think, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mac.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Councillor Sarah keeps moving the post. I thought we had an agreement that the whole package was going to a workshop.
Yep.
Now she's adding stuff back.
Okay.
As though she's making this on the fly.
Well,
I didn't move a
comment's
procedural.
not quite necessary,
Well,
but
okay,
no, it's not.
I'm trying to be constructive.
Yeah.
I didn't trigger a procedural
Yes, no,
motion.
you don't need to explain. I understand perfectly. It's Councillor Thompson's right to have any motion, as it is Councillor Wilson, your right to run a procedural motion. And you don't need to write that, you can just...
No.
You can just say, Madam Chair, I have a procedural motion to lie the item on the table. And I will take that, I have to take that as chair, I have to take that straight away.
So
I'm just saying
is
I'm
this your
happy
final
to.
iteration?
It is absolutely the final one. So my intention was for it to still be in there, and it was. I can take it as a separate motion.
Well, no, that's up to me to decide.
Okay.
How about, we're going to adjourn for 5 minutes, so
Yep, sure.
you guys can have a chat. 5 minutes. Oh, you're amazing. Thank you. I'll have to do that soon. Actually, I'll have to do that while we're in the meeting. I'm not going to take it off, I'll be freezing. I do apologise. I am going to have to re-sew a button, and because we're not breaking, Tanya in her expert resourcing has given me some thread, so I wouldn't bother with it if we didn't have a delegation at 11:30. So I'll quietly do that. I do apologise. It's going to look really odd. Yeah, I am. It popped a button. Yeah, it is. Okay, so we have a procedural motion? No? Okay, great, fantastic. All right, we'll carry on with questions then. I have Councillor McIndoe, then Councillor Naidu-Rolfe, and then Councillor Anna Casey-Cox. You'll be up after that. So, Councillor McIndoe.
Chair, I think to some extent my questions have been, or some of them have been answered. Martin and Nigel, to what extent is the proposal that we're being, or the two that we're being asked to look at today, contingent on an expectation of consistent Waka Kotahi support? Because we know that things have changed quite a bit in government policy. Is that factored into the decision or the recommendations you make?
It's, I think just go to page...
But you've got the initial 1.62 million, but I'm just wondering what beyond that.
I mean, look, it does depend on government policy statement on transport and funding that's allocated for bus services and bus infrastructure. So that table on page 27 that talks about contract years, that's been, I say in the report, it says it's aligned with the when we're looking at the NLTP funding, the National Land Transport Programme funding. So, you know, you put your best foot forward for your funding.
So it's sort of the best estimate.
It is, yeah. So it's really dependent on the government's thinking around public transport, whether they want to go faster or slower in that space. And same with Hamilton City Council and Waikato Regional Council as well.
I guess I'm just thinking we can't really be sure what they are thinking.
We can't be sure, no.
Okay.
You know, it's a bit of future gazing really at the moment.
So
yeah.
because we've already established the fact that we don't have clear costings, and that's just another confusing factor, I guess, in it. This one's a bit of a left field question, but given that we are looking at equity of access to public transport, and I think we all agree that particularly from Rototuna, from Peacock, which needs to be connected as we facilitate development there have to be changes in the future. But to what extent has your thinking taken into account factors other than the geographic ones? I'm thinking about people with limited mobility, night shift workers, you know, equity of access for them as well, because ideally, you know, the more people we can get on public transport, the better.
Oh, look, I agree with you about getting more people onto public transport. That sort of makes the network more efficient for the people that want to continue driving the car. But, you know, the flex does, you know, we've talked about these direct services being very popular, but, you know, if we do invest more in those, then the coverage routes will start to shrink back. And that's when that equity problem might arise. But that's where the flex comes in to support those areas.
Right.
So the flex is going to play a really important role in the future of transport, public transport services for Hamilton. We also have the total mobility scheme running in the city. So we are covering those bases for people that have disability problems as well, and those accessibility problems.
Right, so presumably when this all goes out for public consultation, those will be factored in to try to ensure that we do reach people who are in
We want to reach as many people as we can, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Naidu-Rolfe.
Thank you. Equity of access was one of the questions I had, but it was more around, have we looked at, or have we paid attention to the areas of high deprivation in our city and how we're looking at access in those areas? In particular, if I had to pick on one, it would be a resident from Enderley to Waterworld having to catch 3 buses at the moment. Have we had any thinking done around equity in those terms?
In terms of the development of the routes that we've got,
Yes.
I don't have that specific detail to hand, but again, I can follow up on that and look at a deprivation overlay of what we've
Yeah,
got.
I think that would be quite handy. I mean, we obviously can't have flex buses running from Indelete or Waterworld all the time. So, the other thing which Councillor Louise touched on is our visitor destinations, Hamilton Gardens, the zoo. If I think of Waterworld, has there been any conversations with council staff, and particularly the community group? We have huge parking issues. We have events on the weekends. Any thinking going into public transport, servicing our visitor destinations? New hotels, a lot of visitors due to come in. How are we future-proofing that sort of demand?
Yes, yeah, there was a lot of talk in the workshops we had around those key destinations, ensuring that we're servicing those, not just the visitor destinations, but the employment centres as well, making sure we are linking those up for people. So there's been quite a bit of thinking around that. So when we go out to consultation, we'll see what comes back, and I'm sure there'll be some tweaks made to what we've got here.
So when you say consultation, Martin, and just you can clarify for me, because obviously the councils have talked, but then we still don't see bus routes to the gardens, which is our top destination in the region, if I arguably. So how does that sit with, do we have to wait for the public to come in and say, I want to take my kids to the gardens on the weekend, guys, can we have a bus route? How much weight would that carry versus council going, we can't fit any more cars here, so...
I think, we'll take that point away and we can have further discussions with the Regional Council on that.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Councillor Casey Cox, you're up next.
Kia ora, thank you. Just a question in regards to consultation, again, but more specifically around the regional public transport plan. All of this has been signalled, or the networks have been signalled in that plan. I'm just interested in the kind of levels of engagement that were achieved, I guess, in that consultation, just to get a sense of how engaged our community is in these proposed networks.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have those figures to hand. The last time that we'd gone out to public consultation on the public transport plan was 2022, but I can endeavour to go away and find those numbers and come back to you on that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would be really helpful just in terms of our concerns for how engaged our community is. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. Martin, in response to one question from an elected member, you said in regarding road space reallocation was a thing for the future, much further down. Was that correct?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
So in light of that, if I draw your attention to page 25.23, it states, in the short to medium term, members will probably be asked to review proposals that involve road space reallocation and introduction of managed lanes. So can I just have a clarity? What is it? Is it short to medium, or is it your current advice that this is much further out?
I think it's something that we need to talk about and consider. I don't necessarily mean implementing in the short to medium term, but it's something we need to have on our radar and discuss as part of good transport planning going forward.
Okay. And would obviously involve considerable consultation with the public?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. The other question, if I could, to the GM, the rotor turner high frequency. So the 1.62 that has been approved is unsubsidised. So Waka Kotahi is not participating?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And that 1.62 million would be spent for that project?
Across the public transport network infrastructure, yes.
But not on that specific route that would enable the Rototuna to increase frequency?
Some of those projects, as I understand from staff, are things like there's the Mairoa intersection that will have some, no, Robin's going to correct me there. A lot of it will be between, for the bus infrastructure, the physical works, the curb cutouts, the shelters, etc. Robin's going to add a little bit more detail for you, councillors.
It would be, yeah, it'd be really helpful, Madam Chair, if I could just have the figure that would be associated with the motion, so that I know what I'm spending.
With the Rototuna Rocket route.
Yes.
So we don't have a specific number for Rototuna Rocket. We have the funding for 1.62 was approved through the Green program in November last year, and that is to accommodate changes to the PT network. So some of the changes that need to occur on routes to enable efficiencies there such that Regional Council can use that funding to then pay for the additional services for the Rototuna Rocket. That may require, for example, pulling out a bus shelter. So it's a combination of work on the network for your basic infrastructure, bus shelters, curbs, stops, those hard stands. It may be removing some where they've made a change such on an existing network, such that they can then afford to pay for the services on the Rototuna Rocket. So it's a combination. Does that make sense?
Okay.
With high frequency routes, they can take over some of the smaller, quieter routes. So there needs to be some remediation work, bus stops taken out of some of those smaller routes. So it's still in effect to get that high frequency route going.
Correct. So that the Rototuna can then operate. Yes.
Some other quieter routes that get absorbed. I was going to say swallowed up, but yeah, absorbed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Hutt.
Just on that point, would it be correct that some of the changes we've already been making along that rocket stretch have been preemptive for this, you know, in terms of bus stops that have already been upgraded with a future view to this?
There's a combination with that happening, councillor, but also some of the projects, for example, that have been approved in the March report, the pink list. So things like putting traffic signals in at the Ulster Mairoa, which is funded as a standalone project, that then enables the Regional Council bus route to be shortened, because at the moment they do a bit of a detour up to get a safe intersection to come out. So there's an example of a separate piece of work which is therefore enabling efficiencies on the Regional Council bus service that then help fund the additional frequency for the Rototuna Rocket to be put in place. So there's quite a few bits and pieces like that that we have lined up, which we believe will help Regional Council get those efficiencies they need to pay for their services. And we have that funding to do the infrastructure for the bus, as well as some of those other intersections as well.
Because looking at the, being tragically familiar with too many bus stops in the city, you know, I could see that there were some on the Rocket route that I know are just a pole in the ground. And so am I correct in my understanding that we need to upgrade those if it is a fast frequent service, because you don't want, assuming the extreme popularity of the Comet, the Meteor, etc., you don't want people suddenly mass using a bus stop with no seat, no shelter, no curb cut, etc.
That's correct.
Cool.
Same process that we went through with the Meteor.
Yep.
Before that was launched, you know, routes changed, and we had to upgrade a lot of the stops on that route because we anticipate the numbers were going to be high, and they are very high. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Osten. Yep.
Just one small technical point. Currently, that bus runs through the Rototuna shopping centre, is that correct?
Oh, we've got a service, I think,
Yeah.
or two that run through that.
Right.
Yes.
And if we were to take it to that frequent service, we would be identifying a way to avoid that.
We would ideally like to avoid it.
Yeah.
I remember the discussion we had about the surf project up
Yeah.
there, so we'd need to revisit that.
Thank you. And that's something that we could take up in the information session that we'll plan?
But it's unlikely you'd be able to afford to do the surf project
The full
out
upgrade,
of your
right.
1.62 million,
Right, yeah.
because that's a lot more costly.
So we need to be a bit less aspirational around
So what we were looking for out of that 1.62 million is just to get the service up and running with the basic infrastructure, the stops, the hard stands, the accessible curbs, and maybe a few shelters, just to support that. Let's see what the popularity is like, and then maybe you'd want to put a bit more money into infrastructure in future funding years.
a hard stand that, can you just give me an explanation about what
A hard
that
stand,
is? And
it's just a concrete pad where people can wait to get on and off the bus. So they're not standing on the grass, basically.
oh, a bit like what we've done at Glenview.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's a lot of questions. Thank you for an item that we're sort of almost deferring, but thank you, Nigel, for coming and being in our whare today. And as you can see, there's some keen interest, and there'll be further interest because we now are going to have an in-depth workshop on the item. And thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
All right, so there's the motion on the board for our online viewers. This is receiving the report, and that this committee and council advocates to our regional council to expedite the completion of the Rototuna high frequency service to be operating by 30 June 2027. And as you will have heard, we will also move this item to an information session, and I would encourage all elected members to turn up for that. I will give you a gentle reminder. All right, so Councillor Thompson, your motion, over to you for debate.
Very much, Chair. The new network that's being proposed and that will go to a briefing does deliver what we've been talking about for many years now. More services that are direct and run regularly every 15 minutes. We know that these really work, and that when services are direct and frequent, passenger numbers shoot up. It also means we move resourcing away from the coverage routes, which are often longer, slower, windier, and less frequent. So there is a trade-off, but I think this is the right direction for the city to be going in. What is frustrating is that practical on-the-ground improvements have been too slow. There is the ability to roll out the Rototuna high-frequency service within existing funding envelopes. We've been talking about the Rototuna frequent service for years, and now we're nearly at the end of another political term, and it still hasn't eventuated. So that is frustrating. We need to work collaboratively with Regional Council to get this underway as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be years in between service improvements for the fastest growing city in New Zealand. I think that currently the committee structure isn't working, and we've given feedback on that. There's not enough opportunity for Hamilton City councillors to be involved in the decision-making process for public transport services. 80% of the services are in Hamilton. Our whole strategy for growth and our district plan changes are based on the assumption there will be good frequent services. And more and more residents rely on the buses. So there needs to be further opportunity for us as Hamilton City councillors to influence the direction going forward.
Thank you. And Councillor Casey Cox is the seconder.
Thank you. I think the proposed network that's been shared today offers a really bright future for our city, and you know, and exceptional public transport services, and I think that's really exciting and something that we can genuinely get excited about for our city. The Rotorua Rocket, I have to a little bit of a conflict of interest because it will definitely be a service that I will use, and I love the way that it goes along the school link effectively and will be of such benefit to so many school children, particularly when you think about before and after school activities and those sorts of things, and being able to hop on a bus and know that it's going to be there for you is really, you know, very, very soon is really amazing. So I'm pleased to see that we're advocating back to Regional Council to say, yes, the Rotorua Rocket is something we want to see happening. We know that I think it's 2/3 of the patronage that happens in Hamilton happens on our now frequent services. So we know they're popular, we know they work, and it's great to hear our staff talk about the importance of enabling equity through the flex services as well. So we are covering all the bases in our consideration of public transport going forward. So yeah, thank you for the report today, and I agree that yeah, the information session will be really, really useful, because obviously this is a very important area for all of us as elected members, and we want to be across it really well and be well informed for our community so that we can communicate well and share the information well, because that's a vital part of what we do. So thank you, staff.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, look, I want to make it clear, many of the improvements to the bus network suggested here I will be supportive of. But what I object to, I think, is being asked to approve the totality of a plan in principle at this stage. A plan that's going to have multiple implications down the line. It kind of just feels like a Trojan horse to me. I'm very careful now about approving such plans in principle because they have flow-on impacts, and based on that decision, there's always this suggestion that you've given implicit support for everything contained in that plan. And I don't think it's a great process. You know, the plan goes to a bit of an echo chamber and hasn't been tested fully with the public. I just have to remind you of the reaction to in-lane bus stops. And there's some potentially big issues contained in here, and it's the same sort of thing. Repurposing road space is exactly the issue that many of our residents objected to with in-lane bus stops. The high-frequency route along Anglesea and Ulster Street, that's been in the planning for years, and I've always questioned it. If you end up with a bus lane there, I have issues about that, because Anglesea Street is our main access into the central city at the moment for traffic, for cars. Are you going to push traffic onto Tristram Street with Girls High, with Wintec, with Park there? Or are you going to push it onto Victoria Street, which is supposed to be a pedestrian street? I've never got the answer to that question. So I think there's a lot of talking that we need to do about it. And I can't see, if we're talking about recommendations coming back to the LTP in 2027, what the hurry is. Why wouldn't we socialise these plans up front with the public? Why do we leave it to the implementation stage, do all the work, spend all the money, and then present a plan which the public throws out? Why waste all that time and money? Why don't we get out to the public first and talk about it? So that's where I'm coming from anyway. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McIndoe.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and probably going to sound a bit like an echo of Councillor Jeff. I must admit, I came to this meeting today expecting there to be more clarity and certainty about the options in front of us and the decisions that we would be making, or at least the recommendations that we would be pushing forward. Others have indicated, and I share their concern, that the lack of costings, the lack of evidence of public engagement at this point, it seems that we're putting the cart before the horse in that respect. I think we're probably all very concerned to ensure that we make the public transport improvements that our city needs. We're a growing population. We can't just have more and more cars on the road and assume that everything's going to carry on and be fine. But we're not getting all of the key details that we need at the moment. And as Councillor Jeff has just mentioned, the idea that we might, for instance, be moving towards pushing more traffic onto Tristram Street in order to create a single lane for most road users and another lane for a bus lane on Anglesey Street is something I just don't believe would enjoy public support at all. I don't think the evidence at the moment suggests that that is necessary. After all, if you look at buses getting in and out of the bus depot on Anglesey Street, they can usually do that and move along Anglesey Street reasonably well. I can't imagine for a moment that Bike Action Waikato would support any move that would push more transport onto Tristram Street. So I'm glad that we've made a decision now that we will move towards a public briefing, an information session and an opportunity for more public consultation. But I'm concerned that, as I say, I feel a little bit less confident at this point in the meeting than I was when I came into it.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Look, I want to start by, I want to make three critical points. The first point is public transport plays a vital role in any major city. It's at the heart of what helps people come and go, but it needs to work with all the other modes of transport that are on offer. I can understand the frustrations of elected members who are working with our regional council friends in the current structure, where regional council makes the decision on what the bus routes are, and Hamilton City Council then has to add the cost of the infrastructure to enable. And so I accept that at times it must be frustrating when you've been advocating for the introduction of what is sensible in terms of the rate of Tuna high frequency, that we haven't got traction. So I understand that, and that is frustrating, and I join you in wanting to ensure that we get a resolution because it has taken too long. So I look forward to that occurring. But I also say that we've got to be much clearer to Hamilton ratepayers when we're about to spend 1.6 million on exactly how we're going to spend that money, just so we can explain it. My third point is I haven't and don't feel this is a good process that we've had today, where we were asked to commit in principle to a series of significant bits of work that council staff would do that could involve significant changes of our road layout on Anglesey Street. And I have got very confused with the staff report in terms of this being a long-term vision versus, in fact, the report says short-term. Thankfully, we've been able to stop it. We're going to go to a workshop and we're going to be able to put some meat on the bone and then have a meaningful engagement with our community.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hart.
Thank you. Some of the public watching this will not be surprised that I've been deeply frustrated with attendance at transport briefings, and I feel that the rhetoric today has been an example of that. On April 9th, they stopped a transport briefing 5 slides in because there were only 6 out of 14 councillors present. We discussed bus rapid transport at the briefing in November, but only 8 of us were present, 8 out of 15 councillors. We've discussed this at Access Hamilton workshops multiple times, which were an open invitation. I'm sure that I have the BRT map memorised by now, and I promise I don't have a secret poster of it at home, but I don't even sit on the PT subcommittee. I have been a backbencher for the majority of this term. These routes and plans have been around since 2022. The RLTP, which much of this information comes from, went out for consultation and was signed off in 2022. What we've been shown today has been worked through to enable contracts to be signed. I am extremely concerned about delays to this. I do not want to be dealing with frustrated and angry members of the public if those contracts aren't signed in time, nor do I want to be paying extra costs because we dawdled around now because we thought we had 3 years to sort it out. I recently came across an online debate that I had with former Councillor McPherson back in 2019, hassling him about PT. We urgently need to be giving people better PT options, ones that are reliable, accessible and frequent. I just want us to get on with the process, get on with consultation, get on with contracts, and get those buses on the road. And I need my colleagues to turn up and show up so we can do that.
Point of order.
Thank you, councillor Wilson.
The point of order is...
Without explanation, the number of this.
The point of
then.
order
Yep.
is making a misleading statement in the chamber. She's implying a lack of attendance that is formally required by saying that there wasn't an attendance to a series of workshops that don't have an attendance requirement. In other words, she is speaking poorly of other elected members.
So,
I can give you the particular
without
disrespectful...
without explanation, I was listening very carefully to councillor Hutt's points.
Would you like to replay the last... You could get staff to replay the last couple of sentences of what she said.
I need to know what your point of order is.
It's disrespectful. Let me tell you which one it is. It's part of our code of conduct. Well,
I don't need, no, please don't.
No, I'll let you work your way through it.
So under subjects for points of order, there is language, use of disrespectful, offensive or malicious language. I haven't heard that. Disorder, no. Misrepresentation, incorrect or misleading account of any statement
Correct.
made by a member.
So if you're saying that you don't believe that was to the case.
I don't believe that, given we have briefing minutes and this year workshop attendance is recorded, I don't believe that Councillor Hutt is deliberately trying to mislead the committee. So I'm going to rule against your point of order on this occasion. All right, any other no, Councillor Thompson, I'm going to have a debate before your right of replies. Anyone online? No. Look, I think I'll address two issues or two items in my debate. One is the process, as many members have actually spoken about that. And myself and Councillor Van Osten and Councillor Thompson have been, for the past 6 years actually, on a variety of joint public transport and transport meetings with Waikato Regional Council. And there has been a number of reporting mechanisms back through this committee. We used to attach minutes. I used to go around the room for external committees, including the Tahuia one that I think Councillor Wilson was on, and we used to give verbal updates. But we didn't really get a lot of engagement through that part of the process, unfortunately. So I don't believe, and this is why I mentioned governance, I don't believe that briefings of this nature are helpful. I personally believe, having sat around this table for quite some time, that a subcommittee on PT for Hamilton, but that would be up to a future mayor to decide and this council to decide. That aside, I know that high-frequency bus routes work, and I'm just going to narrow in on that right now because the numbers prove it and the data proves it. We have affectionately called the Rototuna proposal the Rototuna Rocket, and we've named that for some years now, so I certainly hope that it sticks. Fits with Orbiter Comet and the Meteor. They continue to attract very strong rider leadership because, quite frankly, people trust a reliable service, right? That's quick, it's easy to use, it comes every 10 to 15 minutes. You don't have to bother with a timetable. You just grab your bags, you leave your house, and you go. So we should be pushing very, very hard for fast and frequent services. And so I'm very happy to support the motion and that we will do our best around the WRC table to lobby for a faster delivery of that service. Councillor Thompson, right of reply.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you to colleagues for supporting the call to get the Rototuna high frequency service underway. For us to be able to make a decision in terms of endorsing this future network for the contracts, we do need to do it quite urgently because Regional Council needs to make progress on preparing those contracts. I think we'll probably the way forward will be to understand what is the minimum infrastructure required, what are the minimum changes required to enable these high frequency services over the next 10 years. Because we've heard that it's reallocation of road space is not a prerequisite. So let's try and separate it out a bit when we get to the briefing so that we can have confidence that we know that we can get on with these high frequency routes with basic infrastructure improvements that the community will support, and that then we can separate out the conversations around things like bus lanes for a future council to think about in the future without slowing down these high frequency services which we know work and we know that the community does use when they're put in place. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We'll do that on the board, so if the Zoomers in Zoom land can please use your electronic voting buttons. So let's do that.
The motion was carried unanimously.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on. We've still got about 10-ish plus minutes, so let's move on to the next item, item 7, which is page 32, and this is the within our decision-making framework, the report on transport projects macroscope approvals for our online listeners. This is around 2 projects which are Hamilton East, Grey Street and Peach Grove outside Southall School, and welcome Robin Denton.
Thank you, Chair. So the funding for these 2 projects was approved at the 11th of March Infrastructure Transport Committee. As Deputy Mayor has outlined, we are following the transport decision-making process, so we had a briefing on the 9th of April with elected members to talk through the 2 sites, which is a pedestrian crossing in Grey Street, just north of the Wellington Street, so outside Steel Park, and secondly at Peach Grove Road, pedestrian crossing outside Southall School. We had some really good discussions there. Elected members looked through the project reports and gave us some direction as to their preference of both of those sites, being for signalised crossings without raised safety platforms. So that's been duly noted in the staff recommendations, and I'm now happy to take any questions.
Fantastic, thank you, Robin. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Chair Angela. Robin, can you provide councillors for future reference the most detailed cost breakdowns you have for both the crossings and also for Heaphy Terrace crossing?
So we have an elected member briefing booked for the 30th of July, I think it is, where we're going to work through and explain how we do those costings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, no other questions, Robin. Well, then I have one. Clearly on page 36, all of those students are going to McDonald's. Well, KFC. Because, you know, it's like a very deep, deep pink line. But a serious question. Look, I think this is fantastic and the data supports it. Do we have anything else planned in terms of pedestrian crossing in this area? I only say that because it's an incredible hub for restaurants and it's like a little successful mecca, and I'm watching, as other members are at the moment, very near misses on every Friday and Saturday night with pedestrians. So noting this is if it's a Friday and Saturday night and Maid is going and the restaurants are going, and honestly, it's just a hub. It's quite a way down.
So there's nothing currently in
Okay.
the approved program for this LTP period.
And so nothing else at the moment in this period to slow traffic through that busy area?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councillor Van Austin?
Thank you, Robin. I'm looking at the figure 4 on page 38, and where you're proposing to put the crossing, and I note that there's a treescape in and around there. These are not kind of notable trees that impact too much on the area. Is there any trees harmed in the making of this pedestrian crossing?
Are they unnotable trees?
We're working very hard not to harm trees. There are notable trees in this area, and we're well aware of that, and we've been working with the Parks team. Some of the earlier improvements that we had looked at, we looked at the option of traffic signals or a roundabout at the intersection, and one of the big difficulties was actually dealing with the tree right on the corner.
Yeah, Wellington Street.
So, yeah, it's certainly something we're aware of, and we certainly try very hard to minimise any impact. And in some cases, we actually managed to provide a little bit more room for the tree roots to expand and make life a little bit easier for them. So that's certainly the aim.
Cool. I also note that there's a right-hand turn into Wellington Street in and around that area. Will that be a formalised lane at that crossing, or does it happen after it, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so I guess at this stage, this is an indicative plan. When we climb into the detailed design, we'll certainly be looking at that. We're very hopeful that actually having the signals here is going to make that intersection a bit safer and provide some gaps in the traffic for some of those turning movements that happen. But that will continue to be a formalised right turn.
And in your view, this deals with the issue of those left and right turns coming out of Wellington Street onto
Yes.
Grey, because this will stop cars at some point.
Yes, so when we started originally, we were looking at whether it was an intersection improvement. It was really hard to find something that A, worked around the trees, and B, got us really good benefits for the amount of cost that we were looking at. We do think that the signalised crossings do provide nice gaps in the traffic, and we think that this is going to work really well at this intersection, and we've got some other sites that we're looking at in our program with the same sort of idea in mind.
So there won't be the need for the update at that intersection, in your view?
We don't
at this
believe
time?
so. We think it's going to deal with a lot of the crash problems that are happening there. We think that a lot of those crashes are just basically people run out of patience, perhaps, to wait for the absolute perfect gap, so they're taking less than ideal gaps to try and get out and make those manoeuvres. So with the high demand of pedestrians through there, they should get a good chance to get out.
And in comparison with the cost of delivering a roundabout upgrade or a pedestrian crossing, is that similar, or?
No, it's a significantly cheaper option, and it gives us the ability to work around some of those trees, because even though we could come up with a design, we were really still struggling with that tree on that southwestern corner, which was making our design, was making that design very difficult to accommodate that tree.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for indulging me, Chair.
Thank you. All right, so that's been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hutt. There are no other questions. Just really quickly, I want to thank staff for being really consistent with their reporting under the new decision-making framework. It's been embedded for quite a few months now, and I can see that that's working. And I remind us that that decision-making framework was put in place to alleviate some of the concerns that elected members were raising in this chamber, that they were representing voices out in the community. So I'm pleased to see that is working. So I thank staff for that. Also want to thank Southall School for lobbying council and the committee and advocating for their students for a safe crossing. We're all about that. And I'm really pleased that we are making a safe crossing as well for Hamilton East. If you have not been to Hamilton East to dine on a Friday or a Saturday night, then I encourage you to go, because it is a little mecca over there. It's incredible there. You could probably dine there once a week for 6 months easily and still not go through every eatery. It's amazing. And then, of course, you finish your night at Duck Island with an ice cream, if you're prepared to queue, because they are so busy. So go Hamilton East. It's fantastic. And yeah, thank you again, staff. This is an easy one for me to support. Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Hutt is the seconder.
Thank you. I don't want to reiterate too much of what you've already said, but I do think that this proves the importance of advocacy, and I really want to thank Southall for taking the time and energy to come to us. You know, they're teachers and principals and they have kids to teach, you know, but they made the time to come to us and speak to how important this is for their community, and hopefully they will get a really valuable piece of infrastructure out of it. I think this also proves the importance of data. If you'd asked me if nearly 1,000 people walked through Wellington Grey, I would not have even guessed a number quite that high. And over 100 cyclists a day, I'm already thinking of which of my friends those 100 cyclists are. I'd love to see if they're, you know, a blurry face. Probably Councillor Baniston. And it also highlights how pedestrian interventions can really help drivers and make all users safer by providing safe gaps for cars to turn through the intersection. And we open this committee with acknowledgements of the deaths and serious injuries that we've had in our city. And I really hope that these are two interventions that can make sure that there are not deaths or serious injuries for pedestrians, for cyclists, or for car users in these two locations. So also a big thank you to staff for, you know, doing this work.
Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As the councillor with the best official attendance record, I note the options for Peachgrove Road ranged from $500,000 to $900,000. I support spending $250,000 more than the cheapest option to get traffic lights, because I am committed to safety. I only oppose the $150,000 speed bump in the most expensive option. I expect significant savings on fewer orange cones, so I'm concerned that the cost is higher than the $600,000 for the Heafy Terrace pedestrian crossing, which looks pretty much comparable to the two new ones. I have a 30-year career in construction. The cost of these crossings is comparable to a new house. I see some paint on the road, some concrete on the curbs, some electrical work for the traffic lights. I'm left wondering where the walls and the roof are. A crossing design, consent, project management, engineering, and contingency should all be much cheaper than a house. While I support both crossings, I have asked for detailed costings because I simply don't see $1.5 million work. That's 500 average household rates for only 2 crossings. Proceed for safety, but please work to save money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Fully support these 2 crossings. I was impressed by the number of people crossing Grey Street in this area. The desire lines almost became a solid block of colour. And Hamilton East is only getting busier. Outside of Southall School, so makes sense, all of our schools and all of our busy, popular parks and playgrounds should all have safe access for people with children to be able to get, to be able to have access. So fully behind both of these. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our delegation is arriving a few minutes early, so there are no more debaters. I'm doing up my jacket that I probably sewed it a little too tight now. So let's put that to the vote. Let's go on the board. Ooh. Oh, maybe.
The motion was carried unanimously.
Great, thank you. We will adjourn until we are back. We hope it won't be longer than half an hour. And Councillor Maxine's going to dish out the Feijoa slice. office and this council was very well represented. I want to thank my councillors, Councillor Wilson, McIndoe and Huata, who presented beautifully, professionally, and it was a nice delegation and a great visit. So very pleased. All right, so let's crack on. We're on item 8, page 68 for the next, and we have Kelly Stokes and Jonathan Brooke. Hello. It's afternoon now. Close. So we're in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Today staff are seeking approval for the macroscope that will define the shape and size of the Central City reservoirs, ensuring both timely progression of the first reservoir and future-proofing for a second. The macroscope includes essential supporting infrastructure such as valve chambers, pipelines and a pump station to enhance operational efficiency and long-term sustainability. Following today's meeting, staff will present a report to the June Community and Natural Environments Committee to initiate the reclassification process for the reserve. This process will run parallel to the Resource Management Act requirements, aligning public consultation for both. Additionally, a community workshop will be held at the end of March to update residents of the area. These steps reflect thorough planning and community engagement while ensuring Hamilton Central City water supply remains robust and future ready. Any questions?
Well, great, thank you. Right, let's go to questions. Councillor Thompson? Oh, no? Oh, goodness, Councillor Hart.
I thought that I was dawdling enough for other people to ask questions. Just wondering, are we being sponsored by Corten Steel? Just thought, yes, this is familiar colouring to me. I've seen this in the city before.
No, this is just, I guess, visuals at the moment. It's what we can do. Yeah, we're looking at opportunities where we can, I guess, mitigate. The community feedback was that they potentially camouflage. So, yeah, Corsten is one of those things that we could use to camouflage. So, at this stage.
And I noticed in the images, it might have been 3 or 4 in where it didn't look like some brown circles and you could see the tiling or the brickwork underneath.
Yep.
If I am a regular member of the public walking around the lake, am I only going to see that from that southwest side?
From the southwest side, there is a lot of trees protecting the visuals. So, yeah, it will be hidden quite a lot from that southwest side.
Okay, cool. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Councillor McIndoe?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the report. Obviously a really important project. I note that the report indicates that a second reservoir, also of 25 megalitres, may be constructed around 2040, which is obviously outside the time frame of the current LTP. In recent years, sometimes Hamilton's growth has outstripped projections. So putting on, maybe looking to your crystal ball, can you give us an idea of what you think the likelihood of that being needed is? I must admit, I can't really contemplate 25 megalitres. I just know it's a huge reservoir. But can you just give us a bit of an idea of what you think's down the track for us, particularly if we continue to grow above growth projections?
So you're right, I don't have a crystal ball. These projections for when it would be required are based on the growth team's best advice. So that's what we use for our city projections and our city development and our infrastructure needs. So that we work hand in hand to predict when that would be.
Yeah, and so aligned to that, we are anticipating that there'll be some resistance from those in the area. I don't think there's any question that the reservoir is needed, but there could be some resistance from people residing, excuse me, nearby. If a second one were to be done, what do you think the environmental and aesthetic impact would be?
Well, that's part of the reason why we're considering that now as part of this process.
The second one? So you're yet to test it?
We haven't lodged our notice of requirement yet, but we will be including that in the application.
Thank you, because we know there's a lot of intensification up there. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Cool. Thank you, Kelly and Jonathan. Can you talk to the process from here in terms of the design? My understanding from yesterday is we're only signing off the macro scope in terms of the very fundamentals of the volume of the tanks, the inclusion of the pump, etc., and the concept designs are in no way anything of a, they're not a final design or anything. So can you talk me through what that will look like and what opportunity elected members will have in terms of further engagement? Can you talk through the meetings?
So at this stage, we have the agreement with the IAF and we have to meet milestones. In order to do that, we are progressing at a reasonable pace to make sure that we meet those milestones and we get that funding back from the government. The aim is to progress from concept design through preliminary design, through detailed design, and have it underway roughly about middle next year. While that is happening, we will also be doing a notice of requirement and the Reserves Act process to change the Reserves Act to allow us to build these on this site. While we're doing that, we've had the original community engagement to sort of get their feeling of what they're doing. We're going to go back and meet with them again at the end of the month. So at this stage, and we're working with Mana Whenua to find opportunities that we can to put the storytelling and the cultural narrative into the Cortian steel and the concrete blocks and potential whatever opportunities we have we can use of that sort of nature. So at this stage we are basically progressing the design with the bulk and the form, and the rest of the stuff we are still in a fluid motion of working out what the pathways, how we connect it, how we make it work, how we mitigate it from the side. Yeah.
Okay. And there would be another briefing for elected members around that aspect of the design?
Well, we will definitely keep the elected members informed about what's happening. In the middle of this process, there's an election. So there may be limited actual formal meetings for us to come back to, but we will definitely keep elected members informed of what's happening.
Chair, are we able to, are you comfortable if we had a staff action to say that you'll undertake best endeavours for an additional touch point for elected members?
There will be an additional touch point with the June committee. Yeah, we can see what we can bring to that. To that committee, we will be asking elected members to begin the process of the reserve reclassification. And that will require public engagement.
Okay, thank you. We talked about, in that initial briefing, we did talk about the opportunity to be able to go on top of the reservoirs, and I didn't see this. Is that still something that is within the realm of possibility?
Well, so that is part of the agreement with Kāinga Ora, and the funding is to build infrastructure. That isn't part of core infrastructure. So if the council directs us to do those things further down the line and engage with them to potentially discuss varying the agreement, that could be something that we could explore. It could also be an option that when this reservoir is being constructed will be in the next LTP. So there's possibility that elected members may decide to add funding into the next LTP to, if that's something that you want to do. We're led by you on that. The present design though and the present milestones are for functioning reservoirs.
Okay. And finally, just could we at some point soon see what views from actual people on the ground would look like? So as I think alluded to before, what would it look like when you're walking around the lake or at the Lake Domain playground? What does it look like when you're actually standing on Ruakui Road? Because the visuals are all very much kind of aerial and...
So yes, we're progressing that for part of the resource consent application. So yeah, there is a range of visuals that will be able to be shared.
Very final thing is, Councillor Louise talked about the fact that Corten steel is used a lot in all of our stuff. I'm a little concerned that we continue to use the same designers and architects, and we see very similar themes coming through a lot of council projects in terms of how they look. Can we consider at least having some further diversity of thought around the design?
Completely.
Yeah,
definitely.
and material choice is not just for visual impact, it's
Yeah.
also for maintenance and
Yeah.
the ongoing operational
Yeah.
costs of that facility.
Yeah.
So this is a render for the purpose of macroscope approval.
And it's not, I guess it's just not just the Corten steel, it's just the overall design look and feel and everything. A lot of projects are starting to look quite similar.
Okay, that's noted.
Thank you. I'm looking at page 71, the financial considerations. And wow, there's a pop-out number that sits there for the cost of a little bit more than $86 million. It is fully funded through the IAF, but if I'm surprised about that, how is our public going to be brought along to understand what that $86 million delivers without thinking that we're, hit the moon?
So my understanding is that when we made the bid application, we had a range, we had I think about 330 originally we put forward under the bid. Then we worked with Kainoa and we got that down to 150. That 86 is what made up the bid, and that was made up in 2022. So we are working with, I guess, there was probably some conservative in there. If we spend it, we get it back. If we get under, we don't get it back from KO. We're pretty happy that it is robust enough. It's definitely robust enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what you're asking is there a communications plan that we're going to have with the community to inform them about the project and its process and what they're getting for their money? And that's right. So yes, there is a comprehensive communications plan that's been developed. And it's not just about the reservoirs, it's also about how it ties in with the central city and the growth. So we're working with our growth group and developers in the area who have also signed on to the Kainga Ora agreement for delivery of housing infrastructure, because it's all part of the same story altogether about the growth of Hamilton.
Okay, thank you. And then the next paragraph talks about the reimbursement that we submit to Kainga Ora. There's a bit of a shortfall in there, is that a bit over 370,000?
So we've set the milestones up so they try and land within our financial years, but we have to obviously spend the money and then we claim it back from CAO. So that is where the shortfall is. We have spent a little bit more this financial year than what we assumed we were going to get back from.
And will that be captured up in the next?
Yes, it does,
So that we won't be left with that 370 odd thousand?
No, that is where the 86 is coming to,
Good for you, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hutt. I remembered that I was so excited to see a whole range of paragraphs under climate change impact statement. Thrilling, so exciting. Not only just that it was there, but also talks about incorporating renewable energy sources in the design of the new structure. Maybe you just hid them in the pictures. But I was just wondering if you could tell me about those renewable energy.
This is from the project management plan. I will have to go back and have a chat to the project manager to see how we are doing that.
Okay.
But I remember we had a discussion about that at
did.
the briefing. There is obviously the pump station opportunity, and an earlier render did have solar panels on top of the reservoir. So
Cool.
we can see what we can.
Sweet. Good. Councillor Huata.
Porua, thank you for your report. Just following on from Councillor Thompson in terms of the green the green space that we could utilise. Like to see some plans in that effect that would help us meet our goal of increasing our native vegetation, how we could do that on such an expansive space. So that would be cool. And number two, I did ask previously when we talked about this kaupapa, how we would mitigate potential vandalism. And so making it as less accessible in terms of sight would be cool, because people go for it, and we had that horrible experience at the gardens. And when it's in a key place, people are going to tag it. So how do we mitigate that, and working with iwi to think about those things? That would be cool.
Definitely. So one thing that we have changed from the original briefing is that we've moved the two reservoirs further south to try and create more of that open space between the existing reservoir and the two new reservoirs, to create a large amount of space and more access down to the park, down to the lake. That should hopefully make it not feel as, I guess, enclosed through the crime prevention, through environmental design. By making it more open, there should be more visuals and more ability to be able to see those bad things happening and stop them happening.
Yeah, I was more talking about the expansive space that people can do their art on.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But you do have a team that you're working with for design from Tangata Whenua.
Yes.
Yeah, so that you can think about those things.
Yep, and Norman's helping us with that, so
Thank you.
that's why he's got a conflict, unfortunately, on this item.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks for the report. I have a few questions. The Have Your Say work, how many direct letters did we send to affected ratepayers who will have to deal with this in their line of sight?
I've got my comms team, so I'll just quickly... Do we roughly know how many? I'm pretty sure it was in the hundreds, though. We went quite far-reaching. We went along Ruakiwi Road, down back into town, and then along the northern side of the lake and the southern side of the lake. We encompassed the majority of the lake and went around. I'm pretty sure it was around 500. Yeah.
Okay.
From memory, it was over 1,000.
Okay, I undersold you.
Okay,
by
great.
a lot.
Okay, excellent. Now, I think I asked you specifically at our workshop about putting things on top.
Yes.
And you undertook, from my recollection, that you would ensure you would look at the engineering.
Yep.
Your colleague earlier on sort of said, no, it is what it is. You get what you want if you want to spend more money. Can I have some clarity? Exactly what additional strength would we need to make the tops to enable us to put something on top of it?
Okay. We did approach the structural designer at that time, and they did make it sound that it was a reasonable request, but yes, I can give you numbers to what that reasonable request is. Yeah.
Right.
It didn't come back through the community feedback, is why we didn't continue to investigate that, is basically where it got to.
So, Madam Chair, if I could say respectfully, if elected members raise it in a meeting, and you say you're going to provide it, do you not believe you need to provide it, irrespective of whether you think the public saw the concern that we did?
Yeah.
Isn't that the whole purpose of the process?
We're not at that part of the process yet. We're at the beginning, the very beginning of the planning lodgements for being able to designate the area appropriately using the Reserves Act. We're doing a number of processes concurrently.
Right.
And that's one we can explore, and when we've explored that, we can come back to you with numbers.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair, because, sorry, I've been here for the entire session, so I heard you earlier on saying, respectfully, look, if elected members wanted to revisit this at some later time, they could put more money in the LTP. I had asked, and I still require, in my role as Governor, the information that I asked for in terms of what would we have to do to enable these platforms to be used for other purposes as well. right? And so I'm expecting that information because that will then form our thinking as to whether or not there is an appetite for, within elected members to add that to an LTP. But I needed to understand what the level of strength you've designed currently for the price that you've quoted.
Yes,
correct.
Sorry, if I can interrupt, Councillor Ewan, thank you for your questions. What I believe the team is trying to articulate is that this concept design, like many, like Te Ara Peka Peka, starts with a concept and a picture, and we take on the feedback as we continue the design process. So today's report is about agreeing that this is the right thing to do for the IAF fund. It's required for the city to support the growth. The future development and the future detailed design will come back to committee as it does for other processes that we follow. So taking on board your request to look at the structural integrity of the roof for potential use in the future will be part of that consideration, noting that we've got that $86 million to
So, Madam
support.
Chair, I'm just going to move, I'll be flagging an amendment unless if the mover and the seconder, because I wasn't the only one. A number of others raised the same point. And I'm very frustrated that I think it's chosen to be ignored, right?
It might be able to be incorporated.
Also something that I had
that you picked up on too.
expected.
Yeah.
So happy to incorporate something. Would it be that at the next, that work would be undertaken to look at opportunities for utilising the infrastructure?
Just to clarify
or-
with staff, who is the lead on this project? Is it you? Yeah. So if under B, if council approves the macroscope design, does that exclude elected members' wish to look at the weight-bearing opportunity for things on top?
No.
I think C covers that.
Okay. All right. So maybe Councillor Thompson, you might want to just consider expanding C to
So
take
notes
that,
of the design
to
will be
take some
updated
of
through
those words in there.
including consideration of utilising the top of the
Yeah.
reservoirs.
For
Okay.
newer platforms, all
Yeah.
of those options.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you work on that and we'll carry on through questions.
Just in terms of going back to that briefing,
Yeah.
if we can have
Okay.
that as a staff action.
All right. So I'll carry on with questions. Councillor Pike has her Zoom hand up. Councillor Pike, welcome.
Zoomy hand, thank you. I think mine has mostly been covered, but I was just asking specifically, page 78 with the southwest elevation has the original kind of water tower structure, which is very concrete plain looking, and I think it's quite blurry in the description, but it just says it will be sealed, is that right? There's no type of painting intended on that, or?
What happens with the existing water reservoir will need to be addressed through the designation application, as it is a heritage building. So, we do not have thoughts on that yet. That is going to have to come out in the process. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I think the rest of mine is covered just in the motion on looking at further design opportunities and the cafe and things like that. So I think that's covered in our recent conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I just have, I guess, a question plus also a request for future reports. I couldn't actually see, I know we've got to deal with, this is a step-by-step process project and a huge project. We've got to deal with the classification for the reserve to allow this to happen on the site first. I couldn't find in the report and what would have been helpful, I think, is to have a step-by-step process of those things, in particular the touch points around for, as other members have raised, for elected members. But also, so when, can you confirm then when, so there'll be public consultation on the activity around changing the reserve activity, and then that comes back to elected members, and that's a full formal consultation process, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And then as we work through that and then detailed design, is that correct? Is there any other consultation that would happen?
No, so the consultation will happen in parallel for the Reserves Management Act. So we want to go to the public once for both those processes of reclassifying the reserve and the reserves management process.
Right.
From there, it splits off to the reserves management process, comes back to councillors and elected members, and has the hearings and has the reserves management process goes to independent commissioners.
And in that, thank you. And in that consultation around the reserves, we are fully explaining the story of why we want to change the reserve, and this is so in the picture and all of that as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. That's great. Thank you. Okay. There aren't any further questions. So, Councillor Thompson. That's finished. Notes the design will be updated through the future steps in the process, including inquiring about utilisation of the platforms for additional users.
Madam Chair, can I just raise a question?
Yes.
Just in terms of B, approves the macroscope design. Do we not need to put a provisionally approved to ask for that second thing?
So the macroscope, if you look at paragraph 33,
Yeah,
I had some back and forth on this. So it's paragraph 33 sets out exactly what we're signing off.
Sure.
And that, as far as I can see, isn't actually then affected by other design factors. So
correct.
Because it talks about there being two reservoirs.
225 megalith, yeah.
Yeah.
The use of a pump, if you have a quick look.
Valve chamber pipework.
So the macroscope covers off those real technical key points that you need from us, and in terms of design or opportunities for the platforms, that does sit elsewhere. That's not
Yep.
Okay, that's not captured. Do we need to then? Can we?
If I can maybe try and be helpful. So the first part
outlined
in B is the technical infrastructure, that's the nuts and bolts stuff. The C, if we can, I think the wording you might be looking for is that we consider design elements that can be accessible to the public. So that doesn't restrict us to a viewing platform on the top. It could be something around the base that picks up Councillor Maria's point about the land and the security, and we can bring all of those back through the design elements of that project.
Madam Chair, can I ask you though, you are reading the room in the sense that there seems to be an appetite for us to understand that the roof of this structure, right, could have the required strength to put something on top.
So does
right?
this fit in?
Do that at the start is what you're saying.
Well, I guess what I'd hoped from the workshop is that in this base components, that not only would it cover the megalitre capacity, etc., but it would address the issue of the roof and its strength, and so we haven't.
So there'd be nothing stopping us in getting that information prior to anything, like, we don't want to wait months for that, because obviously if elected members, if you came back and said, look, we could put a cafe on top here and no problem at all, it would work and it would be an amazing opportunity, then we would have to look at budget. So we can get that information outside, we can keep it there, but we can get that information outside of a formal process.
Yes, because we would do, as part of the overarching design, we would need to understand the strength of it to accommodate that type of activity, and noting your point, councillor, that we haven't done that already, and that if the cost is a lot and it requires budget, then that becomes a decision, a future decision. What I take from what you're saying at the moment is we need to incorporate it now so that either soon or future councils can decide to use that without us having to go and retrograde the space.
Maybe I answer it this way, Madam General Manager. Council was very proactive when it came to us with bikes on pipes, right? They saw the opportunity and they came to us with a platform on top. So when it suited staff, they came forward with some options. You heard from us in a workshop where we expressed an opinion and it's been ignored, right?
I think messages.
Yes,
being
messages
received.
and apologies, councillor, and we will bring that back, that information back for you for consideration.
Okay.
Given this is coming, so there's another decision coming to us in June on that. Is that correct?
That's the
through the
reserve
delegation
reclassification.
Further information around the opportunity in terms of what we can at least at a high level understand come to us in June?
So there's a few stages of the design process as well, and one aspect is safety and design, and so that's a few months away yet. So those sorts of calculations are done at that time.
Right.
So maybe
can
by
get a-
June, but we,
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
yeah,
We should be able to get a cost comparison at least before.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
work to a cost comparison. And it won't be like 100% accurate, but it's an estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
High level information would be, because since we're running out of time before we all are, are subject to an election and all of that, and we all become kind of useless.
All right, so so, come on, we're straying a little bit here, we need to focus.
Yeah.
So, do you want to stop for a couple of minutes to sort that out, or are you happy with it? It's your motion?
Let's pause.
Do you want to
for
pause?
2 minutes?
Yep, okay, that's okay. Yep. All right, 5 minutes. We have a motion on the board. And now I'm going to be in your hands because I know we've had an odd timetable today, and we have only got one more in public, and then we've got some PX things. We can, yeah, I don't really want to stop for lunch because I kind of think we might be done by 1:30 if we work well, right? Okay. All right, so we've got a motion on the board. Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone, for working on that. Right. Did you change it? Notes the design will be updated through future steps in the process, including mitigation opportunities and community amenity opportunities, such as but not limited to a viewing platform. Everyone happy with that? Everyone clear on that? Yep. Terrific. All right, Councillor Thompson as the mover.
Save time, I'll just say I look forward to working on these future opportunities around the look of the reservoirs. This is the most popular, well-used reserve in the city. It's really important we get it right.
So Hattis, the seconder.
Also, extremely briefly say, yay, investing in water infrastructure. And really excited to see how this progresses. And excited to have more great carbon or climate change segments in the reports.
Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Look, I'm glad that we finally got a resolution I think reflects the wishes of elected members. I recall very fondly the workshop where this issue was discussed, and there's a lot of discussion in this chamber at times about those who attend workshops and the importance of attending workshops because they're so meaningful. I do raise the observation that in this particular workshop, a number of elected members raised the very issue of platforms above the structure, and that there was a clear acknowledgement from staff, and then there was a decision to ignore those wishes. And it was justified on the basis that there hadn't been any public feedback on those points. That at the heart, to me then I'm left in this scenario where if you invite elected members to workshops, and we can't all get there and they are informal, there is not a vote, it's not a competition, but if we did turn up and we do impart a view or a vision and then staff choose not to reflect that despite having said that they would, I find that troublesome. And I would suggest that as an organisation that respectfully, it's not optional for staff if they've asked for our feedback and we ask them to, we suggest that they provide that information, that's at the very least they should be able to do, because we would have avoided this whole thing today. So if there's any time pressure consequences as a result of this, then staff don't have to go far to understand why there's been some time constraint, because it was in their hands.
Thank you, Councillor. Look, I'll just briefly say it's unfortunate again that we're sort of stuck in this twilight zone of discussing process. I again look to our governance structure and look to the new council and incoming mayor around looking pretty hard at how we do things, because as we know in briefings we can give a steer, but it's not a formal decision making, and things can get lost in the weeds, I think, and lost in translation. I don't actually recall the briefing, but I'm hopefully I was there. Yeah, so therein lies some of the difficulties. But in saying that, I thank you to all of those that worked on this motion. Look, this is critical stuff. This is what we're here to do, right? This is the most life-saving service that we provide to our people, to our residents, and I look forward to watching this process fully move forward for a new.
Other people speaking?
Oh, sorry.
Well, you shouldn't apologise.
I didn't hear. Sorry. Oh, okay. No, I could. Yeah.
Sorry. I mean,
I was
other
clearly
people
probably
were
just talking to myself for some.
No, other people were speaking while you were debating.
All right. Thank you. And I finished. Councillor Thompson, any right of reply? No. All right, let's put that on.
Thank you for the project team for all the work you have done to date. This is a massive project and we've got tight timeframes, so just wanted to add a thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the board to vote.
Motion is carried unanimously, noting that Norm did not vote.
That's right, Mangai Hill did not vote. Yep, thank you. All right, last report in the public part portion. This is taken as read normally. I did, however, indicate there were 2 items, members, well, one in terms of the award that I just wanted to quickly comment on, and then there was one in there about traffic management and road cones, and I know that some members are very excited about that, so there might have been questions further to what's in the report. But just briefly, look, congratulations staff and to this council and this government and former governments that made the decisions. I mean, this bridge is outstanding, and we should be very proud of our team, of everyone involved, from departments in this organisation right through to funders and to central government. Fantastic, congratulations. So in terms of anyone wanted to, nobody else indicated any other item on there, but was there questions? Yes, Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If I could get the staff to send me any geotech reports on the Morrinsville roundabout, just out of professional interest, that would be good.
Yes, I can take that on board, Councillor Bidder. I don't believe we've started that yet, but when we do.
Thank you.
Yep, great, thank you. All right, so we'll just do that on the voices. Oh, sorry, Councillor McIndoe, yes?
Sorry, I just feel having
That's
put
okay.
road cones onto the agenda, I should just quickly explain. Firstly, can I acknowledge Tanya and thank you for the responses you've given me. As you've mentioned, Deputy Mayor, some councillors are excited by road cones, and it's because so many of our residents and ratepayers are excited by ratepayers. So I asked for the information. I'm grateful for the fact that we're going to get more of the information down the track. It's possibly worth noting, because a specific reason why I raised this recently was, we're in debate, aren't we?
Yes.
Oh, so I realised it's not a question coming here, but I thought we were in debate.
Yes, we are.
A specific reason was because a resident had sent me a photograph of some road cones on Grey Street recently, which appeared to be really overkill, sorry, that's possibly a bad choice of phrase, a really bad use. And so I raised this. It turned out that they're not actually associated with the Hamilton City Council project. And so I think quite often our ratepayers and residents assume when they see road cones that everything's something to do with the council. And so I'm really just saying this for the benefit of people who might be listening online, that while I hear you and I share a concern about the way in which road cones have been used in different parts of the city, don't always assume that it's associated with the Hamilton City project. And I look forward to further information in the fullness of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So that's been moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Chair, Councillor McIndoe. All those in favour say aye. There are none opposed. That's carried. You'll move to remove. Thank you, Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Hart. All those in favour? There are none opposed. It's carried. Thank you, everyone. We'll just wait a couple of minutes to